Welcome back to the new improved Panzer Corps 2. This is Gamer 1745, and we're going to continue sort of where we left off, but not quite. Well, okay. I needed to go back because of a problem with a save, and I'm not exactly sure what it was, and replay some of it. So I figured I just decided to go back and replay all of it. So this is about where we were last time, but from a new start. One of the things you may notice with the improvements here is it's no longer 3 heavy machine guns for a grenadier unit. It's a rifle guy and a submachine gunner added to it, which is cool. Now having 3 riflemen for the... Oh, well, what's this guy here? What is that? That's supposed to be a bipoded machine gun or LMG type thing, maybe. Okay, that's good. And 2 riflemen. That's good. That's a much improvement. Oh, and there's horses now for the towed wagons. I don't know that I have any towed wagon units like artillery, but there's horses now in it. So the graphics have got what I expected. Was planned all along, not anything. And like we can see here, the Gebirgsjägers. One guy's carrying an SMG. So yeah, the graphics have gotten better. The game's gotten better now. A couple of things I changed in this playthrough. I am now playing on standard instead of hard. I really got sort of sick of, not that I couldn't have like super elite or not, sorry, let me restate. Not that I couldn't have all the best, equipment kind of thing wasn't my issue. My issue was the inability to, generally speaking, do a moderate amount of elite reinforcements, and the inability to store up enough prestige even between missions that would allow me to even mostly heal up the forces. So I'm playing on standard, and I decided to take a few other traits. Oh boy, now that I'm saying this, I'm forgetting exactly what. Still have Panzer General. I have, no overstrength units as a negative. I have Blitzkrieg Specialist. And I have the one that gives you more prestige for capturing victory hex or anything. And I think it's the one that limits supply levels. So a couple of bad traits. So that has changed. But yeah, so we replayed, and I don't think everybody wanted to see everything all again. Okay, so now we have well, we want to end deployment. Yes, we've deployed. If you want to see the mission objectives and such, you can go back to the previous episode here. Okay. Well, we have a Storch. Where do we want to fly this Storch? I think we want to fly it up sort of like this. Okay, that exposes a lot of enemy forces. Oh, and we are right next to some enemy fighters. I did not plan that. Okay, well. Let's see about jumping on that. Ooh, that doesn't look good. Well, let's do that. we're going to take a heavier hit there, but then we're going to come with this 109. And really bring them down. Okay, that's good. I guess we should clean up the airport, get that in our hands. Ah, and armored cars. Okay. Move up. Debark from the trucks. Unlimber from the trucks. Okay. Anti-tank really does work best as a support element. But now that they've been, and these are, got another, oh, I forget who, one of the longtime viewers, a comment about the quality of the models on this. Saying, yeah, they're not that great. Well, it's just that, you know, we can zoom in like this and I can play like this, but, and it looks great. I mean, it really does. I think, especially that FT-17 has a really nice paint job on it there. Really nice. But it's just tactically somewhat limiting. Okay, well. I'm coming to the north side of the city here, whatever this is. Would be better, we can get out. Okay, you guys come up to here. I think we'll risk the trucks. I don't know that they'll come across the bridge. They'll have artillery backup. Now we know how fixated the AI is, not that it's a bad choice on going after artillery, so he'll have some AA support. And we're going to leave our 2 aircraft back at. Yeah, we'll attack next turn with our aircraft. We'll see how this goes. See if there's other fighters in the area. Okay, went after that artillery. Sort of surprised it knew where it was, but okay. And now we have a rainy day, so no air operations. Okay, which does give us time to reinforce or send reinplacements there. Okay, well, we're going to use you just to eliminate this guy. Very good. The ballet of Panzer Corps. Okay, this will attack here. It didn't fall back like I thought they might. That they did fall back on. Let's keep in contact with those guys. We'll swing up here for next turn, coming around the north of Cambrai. I'm expecting a British heavy armor counterattack just by the name of that, if nothing else. Can this guy shoot a deer? No, he's covered with the AI. It's raining. Okay, these are my pioneers. Yeah, that's why they're doing fairly well with the assault there. That's even better. Oh, they have artillery, damn. Okay. They still did very well. Okay, that's good. Next turn is expected to be sunny. Well, let's use our reconnaissance responsibly and very effectively. Okay, well, yep, thought they would be there. We'll come down there with the infantry soon. Okay, that's an AA gun, it looks like. 25 mil. Okay, so they've been whittled down a bit. Yeah, I'm just going to take my time with this. I know we're blitzkrieging and all, but let's move you up. I'm just looking for surprise as well. Oh, they're all encircled now. Okay, that's effective. Thinking about coming around and hitting that from the rear in two places to make sure I take out the artillery. They're doing some good there. These guys will move up here. Yeah, I think we'll get out of the trucks instead of stay in the trucks. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. The French armor showed up. Ooh, that's a bad attack. Yeah, that ain't good. Okay, we probably need to bring some armor or artillery down to deal with that. Or air power. Air power could be a thing. Let's think about that now. Or I definitely think I want to use the air power right now. Okay, can they make it? They can make it to here. We've got that A again. You know, let's think about that. Okay, we're going to continue our fighter offensive here. Yeah, might as well fully take it down. Oh, they have an AT gun up there. Okay. Well, that is good to know. Because that will affect how I attack things or how well the attack will go. Oh, okay. That's where the air power is going to get used. We can get up here and smash the artillery. And then let's yeah, the suppressed 4-strength artillery gets to return fire. I should have done this first. Well, the question, of course, comes, that would have been stronger for its counterpunch there. Now it does have that counterpunch, but hopefully a combination of it being weakened and everything, it's not going to do so well. Now, I guess since they've been surrounded and these are the engineers, okay, yep, we'll take that. Cut them off even more. Okay, I think we need to take the losses here and push. Okay, fall back. Where? I always want to attack with my... Oh, we could do that. That'd be cool. Nope, nope, let's not do that. Let's do this. Get a little further away from that town. And a possible counterattack. Yeah, I guess the infantry may be a bad a problem there. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing some flaws in my tactics. If you aren't, I am. I need to coordinate things a little better instead of trying hitting everything at once. Okay, we still have plenty of time to recover from the missteps. Dingo showed up. And the British A-13s showed up. And more infantry showed up. Uh-oh. No, that worked right. Those early cruisers, what are those? Model. Maybe they're still A-13s with the little additional machine guns. Okay, history lesson time. Okay. Before World War II starts, in the early 20s, the most advanced thinkers on armored warfare are definitely the British. They're the ones that are really doing the most work. France actually produces a lot more armor, but, well, 20s maybe not so much, but in the 30s definitely. They're still looking at armor as a support weapon. It isn't until I think 1940 or 39 that France develops it. If I'm not mistaken, correct me below if I'm wrong. Its first armored division, and that is with de Gaulle in charge of it. It's not something that they were really looking at. They were looking at having a lot of armor units spread around supporting the infantry. The British are really sort of forward thinking. What is going on with the back of this vehicle here? Is that just a little bit of a, I guess there's a little glitch or something there. I don't know what that. Wondering if that was supposed to be like an engine running when I was zoomed out, or the exhaust smoke, but I don't know. That's the muffler there. So the British are looking at creating a armored force, and they're in their early phases are looking at basically just tanks. They had done some reasonably effective stuff at the end of World War I with some tank units, Whippets. They're sort of light tanks, just with machine guns on them and fairly fast, running behind German lines and shooting the place up. And they sort of evaluate the problems with that as being primarily equipment limitations, not tactical limitations. And so they see the future battlefield as being one in which you could get mobility that would then allow your concentration of force. I forget it was whether, I think it was Fuller, JFC Fuller as opposed to Liddell Hart, but could have been Liddell Hart. Really saw tanks as sort of like a naval operation in which you'd have a secure base somewhere, fortification. And then you would send out a fleet, and I'm using that term particularly, and I was way too aggressive with that AA again. Send out a fleet of tanks that would go do, its wrecking, its havoc amongst the enemy, and then drive back to the secure base. Now, this might not just be like an outing for the day. It may be out for, an outing for a few days, maybe a week or two, or something like that, and trying to carry a fair amount of its supplies, fuel, ammo, food, that kind of thing with it, and then go back and restock up. And so it would sort of be like naval warfare, but on land. Now, that didn't happen, but that's what they were thinking about. And also, which looks at, shall we say, like the American doctrine, the American doctrine, still to this day, doesn't believe that an infantry division or two or three can stop an armored division by spreading out anti-tank guns sprinkled throughout the the division, with each battalion, ready to support them. Now they do put anti-tank guns in those battalions, but that's not going to stop a concentration of enemy, attack of tanks. It's not, and they know it. It's going to maybe slow it down, maybe shoot at the occasional small group of armor, because they do run into that, but that's not going to stop it. So their idea was a rapid, to counter this, and I know I'm digressing, a rapid moving anti-tank unit that would, they would identify, because, especially from World War II, everything's a Tiger, all the enemy tanks, and so you're getting all these reports. But once you identify where the real enemy armor attack is, then have a very rapid armor or anti-tank movement to a position to counter that. I say to a position to counter it because what the hell is it going to look like? Maybe there's a place to come in to, set up an ambush, and they move in a big way, not just one or two tanks, but move in a big way in front of it, and you ambush it. Or it may be you're coming into, you're advancing rapidly into the enemy's tank rear, as it's pushing deep, as a flanking rear attack. Whatever it may be, it wanted sort of operational, because I don't know if strategic is the right term, but operational rapid mobility to deal with the enemy tanks. And as the chieftain, great guy on YouTube, points out when asked, well, why did the army abandon this? Because the army no longer has like the M18, which is the sort of quintessential World War II doctrine of the super fast, light armored, really good tank destroying gun on there, as opposed to, say, like the Stug, in a way, especially in the later versions of it, or the Jagdpanzers that are at best standard Panzer speed, if not even, especially look at the Elephant, actually slower than the standard Panzer speed way of dealing with this. Big and slow, but can take a lot of damage and kill. And even their lighter stuff here, that's a standard tank, or speed operationally, that just has a really good killing gun on it. And often they're, they used till basically the end of the war. We're putting them on Panzer II hulls, producing those. So they're, slowed up that Panzer II quite a bit by putting that heavy gun on it, but it's still maybe a bit quicker than the slowed up other tanks, like the slowed up Panzer IVs by the end of the war with all the extra armor. I mean, they re-geared some of the transmission to get some of the speed back and deal with it, but by putting on a heavier gun and all that extra armor on it, you slowed that up even more. Now the Panther gets you back to speed, but but their motorized, lightly armored stuff, anti-tank weapons in Germany aren't particularly like super speedy. They're not slow, but they're not fast, is how I would categorize them. And his thing is, well, who says they didn't give up, or who says they did give up that doctrine of a fast, rapid reaction to enemy armor? And he's right, because he points out the Apache helicopter. Before that, the Cobra helicopter, sort of the TOW Cobra, with all of the TOW missiles on it, they went to a helicopter reaction to an armored breakthrough. Instead, now of course there's always the armored divisions reaction to, and we're going to get there, to an enemy armored division. But we're talking about things that are primary infantry units, and a lot of modern American infantry divisions will have, say, a tank battalion or something as part of it. You have to get into some of the more specialized. And God, you can probably correct me, I'm probably wrong on something, because I don't keep up on all of the... Because I know they were doing the striker brigades for a while, and I don't know. But, I'm probably wrong on some element of this. But most of the proper divisions, infantry or armor in the U.S. that aren't something like an airborne or an air mobile division has organic tanks to it, or like the 10th Mountain Division, I don't think has any Abrams to it, because of what it's designed to do. But who knows, maybe they attach some to them, I don't know. Okay, so they use now helicopters, fast mobile reaction. Well, to get back to the British thinking is they go, yeah, they can stick a few of these guys around here, and they can effectively knock out our tanks. So are we going to try to put armor to stop an anti-tank gun? No. Why? Because they'll just build a bigger anti-tank gun. What's the point of it? I'm talking like in the 20s and early 30s here. British thinking. Why? Because, yeah, they're just going to build a bigger anti-tank gun. But they're only going to have a few of these. And the concept, though military budgets generally, and I'm also looking at this vehicle here, the concept was we're going to have a lot of these at the point of impact. Maybe not a lot, because we're Britain and we're not doing mass armies like France or something. We're doing a smaller professional army. World War I was sort of a something of a abnormal situation for Britain historically, and even in the Napoleonic Wars. At the height of the Napoleonic Wars, with Britain fighting in the peninsula, there was no army conscription in Britain. They just didn't conscript soldiers. All those soldiers that Wellington was using were volunteers. They volunteered for that service. There was a certain kind of militia type conscription for home units if they didn't get enough volunteers in areas. But those units, including there was militia, which were part-time, and then the fencibles, which were full-time soldiery. But as part of their agreement is they would never be sent overseas, and they sort of maybe fudged that when they sent some of them over to deal with an uprising in Ireland. But combination of an emergency situation, and did they really count Ireland as being overseas? The idea was is if you were in a fencibles unit, you weren't going to be sent to go die in a battle, over on the continent against Napoleon's all-conquering army. Now, the fencibles did end up being a recruiting zone for the regular army. Soldiers there after a while go, hey, yeah, recruiting bonus, join a regular army outfit, now that you're all trained up. And so it was a recruiting center. But they weren't forced to go overseas. Britain did have impressment, which is a type of a conscription that just sort of randomly picking up sailors to man their navy, but not their army. So it was the post-Kitchener call for volunteers that finally gets Britain really into conscription in World War I. And of course, they conscription in World War II. So they're looking at a smaller army. They're looking and theoretically looking at not to not have infantry, but to be sort of really advanced with their small army, including with armor. And so, okay, let's, an anti-tank gun. A gun shield on it. Yeah, that sort of kind of protects them from rifle fire type things, but depending on the gun shield, it may not even do that. Especially if you have an armor-piercing round, which I'll not try to describe what that is, but you probably know. It may not even stop a regular bullet. It's mainly just sort of, shelf, or fragments from near misses and concussion waves from like near misses. So something hits, blows up near it, or just impacts that something traveling. You can get killed by having something like a 75 millimeter round pass just inches away from you, because even if it doesn't hit you and doesn't blow up, just its shock wave. I'm not saying will kill, I said could kill. There's a difference. You could die from it, just from the shock wave of it passing by. So shock waves and other things with a decent metal shield will sort of break that up. Definitely something like a 50 caliber round will penetrate most of like gun shields and things like that. So it was sort of mostly, rifle fire, machine gun fire, probably, shell fragments, probably, kind of thing. Give confidence to the guys behind it, not just run away when they hear some bullets whiz past them. A lot of that to it too. Okay, so the idea is that these things are always going to kill these things. But if you have a bunch of these things and just a few of these at the point of impact, because you don't know where the enemy's going to be, and even if these are towed by trucks, they're going to be, you need to spread them up and down the line, spread them everywhere. Every unit's got to have some, and you're never going to have enough. So you overwhelm them, and then, again, this is going along the theory of not necessarily having infantry support in immediacy. So you have your main turret here. Oh, and so this armor here needs to stop three basic things. One, near misses from artillery. If a 75 or 105 millimeter artillery round impacts directly on you, it may mess you up and take you out. But hitting right next to you, and then the fragments, needs to protect you from that. Needs to protect you from rifle and machine gun bullets, and which the Germans did put out in reasonable numbers before the end of the war, their T-Gewehr, anti-tank rifles. The British were using the Boys anti-tank rifles. That's looking at a 50 caliber type weapon. The Germans stayed with a small caliber, but with a huge cartridge behind it. So you can have more surface area for your armor, because it doesn't need to be that thick, because you're not stopping enemy main tank guns like this thing. You're not particularly trying to stop them, and you're not trying to particularly stop anti-tank weapons. That doesn't mean you don't have maybe some of the fronts of this at some point have a little bit heavy armor, but you don't need to have heavy armor around these little sub turrets that have a Vickers machine gun in them. Because, hey, yeah, we're not, you hit me with an anti-tank gun, you're going to mess me up. But we're going to, as we charge at the anti-tank gun, at whatever speed's practical, depending on the terrain and whatnot, we're going to have machine guns ablazing. We're going to have main gun firing periodically, though probably as if you're moving rapidly, the main gunner is going to be firing his machine gun, and because you can sort of see that this and this are very similar tanks. You can see the whole front is a bit different here, but it doesn't have that angle thing. But the main thing is it still has the driver in the center, but doesn't have the two sub turrets on it. And the turrets are, not identical, obviously, because that has a little round cupola and this doesn't, but are virtually sort of laid out the same in, gun layout and machine gun layout and main gun layout and whatnot. So they're very similar. They're just a small progression on them otherwise. So this philosophy, and so strategically they're looking at having armor, hitting lots of infantry, and just armor, and going home or going back to a place to not just fill up the tank once, refuel, but really, because this force could have some trucks and whatnot, sort of in a cocoon of its armor to, refuel some fuel, but you resupply, and then get ready to sally forth again against the enemy and keep doing that and fighting in concentration. So this is why they did all of these extra, I don't know, angles is not the right, but all the extra little armor shapes on this thing because they weren't worried about the weight. Now, as time goes on, the ability, especially even before France, because by the time 1940 is, they've already dropped this as a production idea. You know, there's still a bunch of them in service with, like we're seeing here, with the extra machine gun turrets, and you can see a bit later they've even sort of removed some of the turrets and bolted on some extra armor on a few things as sort of an emergency stopgap. So you go down to what is essential, your main gun and your machine gun, which may sort of still be your main gun, your main actual weapon of killing, because both these guys are pointing their machine guns at each other. This is sort of, you know, to take out... the main gun was looked at as the thing in which you kill the enemy machine gun pit, that, depending whether it's just a, you know, guys with some shovels dug a literal pit, or whether they had, you know, went over here and chopped down some trees, found some rocks, and created sort of, you know, a wooden with a few rocks, an otherwise earth structure that will stop bullets, except for going through the slits, but need to blow those up. That's what these are designed to kill, main guns. And of course, you're running into your other thought to be mostly relatively thin skin armor. And yes, the British weren't stupid. The idea that, yes, you could build a, you know, heavy tank, but they're going to be big, slow, and you're going to be able to have the time to react to those and have a, you know, bring up some anti-tank, really punching weapons, but that's not. So the little sub turrets are cool, but they just don't, you can't armor them up effectively. I mean, you can, but you just end up with a slightly mobile pillbox. The mouse would be an idea, you know, with going down a bit from the mouse's ultimate armor at the time, but going down a bit, but having all these, you know, 100mm thick small turrets on there, and what all that's going to weigh and all that stuff, and what you have to do to bigger, heavier suspensions and one more area to armor, and yeah, you could sort of, you know, you get the idea. So you end up just with a somewhat mobile pillbox by that point. So yeah, that sort of shows the 1920s and early 30s look at armor, and it's not wrong for the world that it was envisioning and it was looking at. It's, you know, obviously now we have super powered engines that, you know, the armor is an issue versus the weight of, for sure, but you can get very good armor with like the Abrams on that. But it's, you know, in this sort of world, it's like, yeah, you know, the enemy's going to have a big 88 gun. Do you make Shermans that can resist 88mm guns? Do you make heavy tanks that can resist 88mm guns? Well, they did sort of with the Jumbo, but that was a limited use vehicle. But mostly they go, no, their 88mm guns are going to be able to penetrate us. Oh, back in the, you know, in the States, they're developing some heavy armor, but the division commanders out in the field didn't want them. You know, the M6 was adopted, but I don't think they ever sent any to Europe, and to my best of my knowledge, it never got over into any sort of combat outfit. Now the Soviets go, yeah, we can have some heavy stuff. KV series, JS series, IS series, whatever, because you, depending on the alphabet, whether you spell Joseph with an I or a J. But you have, so they went with some heavy stuff, and of course the Germans went with heavy tanks. The Americans, and to an extent the British, go, yeah, we're just going to, oh shit, there's Tigers. Let's back the hell up, or just turn around and get the hell out of here. British tanks didn't back up. Basically, they didn't. And let's get the hell out of here. And then we're going to call in airstrikes. Notice how I use my air on attacking enemy armor. call airstrikes on the armor, call artillery onto the armor. Because, after a while, even if you're not actually killing the tanks by hitting them with the enemy artillery, guys being, how many hours are you going to be bombarded with artillery fragments hitting your tanks? Are you going to be able to do good? And while that's going on, you're feeling your way around the enemy's edges, because you can't, unless you're a mouse, and then that's just a slightly mobile pillbox again. But if you're a Tiger 1 or a Tiger 2, you can hit them in the flanks and kill them with a 76 millimeter gun. And they've got 12 tanks, 12 Tigers, or 24 Tigers over there. Well, let's bring 48 or 64 or some other number of good 76 millimeter gun tanks on them rapidly from the flank. And, yep, we're going to lose a few, but we're going to overwhelm them, and we're going to kill them, and we're going to go on to victory. And so at some point, you sort of go, yep, it's just not impossible, but not practical to arm yourself up against all this stuff. And again, design philosophy. The German tank designers and producers saw this as a durable good. They took a lot of feedback from the units in the field and were constantly modifying the tanks to do that, which slows up production. They make sure their production is high quality so the tank can last a long time. And even to the point of going, oh, well, we've got 60 of these ready to send out. Oops, oh, well, we're going to do a different cupola on it. Or, oh, we've come up with a new vision slit thing. Well, hold up on that for a few days, sending them out there. Let's add that to. We don't have to actually quite put them back in the assembly line to put a different, vision slit device here on there. We just hold them over here, and when we get some of them, we'll put them on there and then send them out. So there are all these delays to make a durable good tank, but they didn't survive in combat long enough to be a durable good. They're not like a battleship. A battleship is a durable good, and it's meant to go in and basically win one big naval battle. And the winner of that naval battle will rule the ocean seas, because it'll take 2 or 3 years to build a bunch of replacements. That was the idea for a battleship. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to build, and even if you had enough dockyard to build them all at once, it's still going to take 2 or 3 years to build replacements. So you win that battle for 2 or 3 years, you own the seas. So you have this really good durable good that can sail around for a long time, be operational for a long time, and then go into one big battle and do its thing. And if they did well, they've won. If they did poorly, they've lost. The next war. And most naval wars, you just sort of signed peace treaties, and you figured out what, it wasn't a nation disappearing or not. It was advantages given or lost or whatever. So, because then you still, otherwise, oh, you've won the seas, yeah. Does Britain have a home army? Can you invade? We still got that home army to fight. You still might lose. So we'll sign a peace treaty with you, maybe. Now, Germany never sunk Britain's fleet. Had Germany sunk Britain's fleet and sort of done the old, U-boat kind of, but with a high seas fleet, starved them out and bombed enough of the factories, Britain might, whether it was Churchill or Churchill loses his, position in government, whatever that outcome might be, that could then be, signed peace treaty. You've won, but you don't get to occupy us kind of win. It's just we're going to be, we're going to go for a peace agreement. Recognize whatever we're recognizing, give Egypt to Italy or something like that. But that's sort of the situation. Well, we're going to end this episode here. Sort of sorry for the restart, but I think it was useful and necessary. I do want to continue this. I hope you continue liking my talks, my videos. Hit that like button. Tell everybody about the channel. That you don't know how much that would help if you just told somebody about the channel, even one person somewhere. And of course, your comments, suggestions. Subscribe if you haven't. See you soon for more historical gaming.